Alright guys, it's going to be a little fun now. We're going to actually use jQuery to do a post. So the first thing is, let's open up our views, go to our home folder and our home view. And we're going to post this good old form here. So you might be asking, well, where am I going to put my JavaScript? I personally like to put it at the end of my file in the view, unless it's like a entire JavaScript application. This is up to you. If you decide to include your JavaScript files from someplace else, that's no problem. You could even say script src equals, base URL, and put it inside of your public folder somewhere. But I just like to do it straight up like this. And maybe some people might smite me, but sometimes it's easier. And we're going to do jQuery's document ready, just with the dollar symbol and function. Okay. And for fun, let's make sure it's working. I just like to throw in an alert 1. And people usually want to smack me for typing alerts, but it's just a quick and dirty way to see if something's working. Okay, I got my alert. If you didn't get your alert, you should open Chrome Console Tools. And I'm hoping you're using Chrome because it's probably the best browser. And you'd look in your network tab and refresh the page, and if you have anything that's in red, you would know that it did not get loaded. Okay, so with this, let's see what we have. We have our form here, and the form has a class, and I'm going to give it an ID just so it's unique, and in case we were to ever add a form on here later, it would still be unique. So I'll just give it login form ID like that. And down here we'll say login form. This selects the login form element. Dot submit. And submit only works with forms. Okay, it's different than click. So instead of saying submit.click, I'm saying form.submit, because this way I can serialize the form a lot easier. Okay, and I'll have a function. Okay, and I'll have my event right here, and I'll say event.prevent default. Basically, that'll prevent the form from submitting. So go back and refresh and click. Nothing should be happening, and that's correct. If it were submitting, you'd see it go to the action and it would have a question mark there. Okay. So next we need to give this form an action, and even though we're doing this through JavaScript to post the form, I like to put it in the action here still, because it's easy to do. So I'll say site URL user/login. So hopefully you can see that. And just make sure you have your quotations correct, otherwise you'll have some serious frustrations. And what I like to do is say this dot attribute action and this dot serialize. And I'll give these a variable, and I'll call this URL and this post data. Okay. And to post it, it's pretty easy. We just do the post like that, and I'll post to the URL, the post data, and the callback function. Okay, and I want my data in JSON. I always want my data returned as JSON. So after here, I'll put a comma JSON. Okay, and we're going to need to see what's being posted, and that's going to introduce us to the input post class. So under controllers, we'll go to user login, and I'm going to put a die statement right here briefly so we can test it. First of all, let's do a print R of the post that's in regular PHP. Okay, and I'm going to open up this little guy here and log in and look at the network. Oops, I better refresh the page and log in. Okay, So you see how it's calling that page through Ajax now, and it's doing a post method here. That's what we did through jQuery. So the request headers, let's see, we just passed in some empty data. You see serialize will pass in the form for you. So if I put in some values here and scroll down to the form data like that, and let's go to the response, and good, it is posting the data. Okay, so our input post class, so I'll say this input post login, and this is always loaded for you. We'll also do one for password. And one thing I should tell you is, you might be asking, why don't I just use post login? And honestly, you could, and I wouldn't even complain. But the benefit to using the built-in input is that, for one, it'll fix any Windows new line characters. Say if you had a text field, it standardizes those for you. It also prevents against XSS attacks. It just filters out hackish code. Other than that, I don't see like a huge benefit, but that's about that. I will be using it though. So I'll say login equals login, and password equals password. Okay. Okay, and that's really the post class. All it really is. For XSS filtering, you're going to have to go to your config once again, and config, and just look for XSS, and I'll set this to true. Nobody wants XSS stuff. People trying to hack you. Okay, now when I look at this, it kind of indicates I need to refactor the user model a little bit. Where we would be able to pass in a custom value. So let me briefly open up the models folder and go to user. And my get, I want to be able to do a where statement, because I want to see where the user ID is meeting a certain criteria. And this begs the question, well, aren't we really just making all this work for really 2 lines of code? And we are, but the purpose of doing this is to show you a little later a very flexible way to make use of stuff. So have faith in that, okay? With this, I'm going to check if user ID is an array, okay? So in here, I'll say else if is array user ID, and we'll just do another get where, and we'll pass in the user ID, okay? And this would be an array. So we'll do a get where user ID, okay? So just get where user ID. And back to our user class, I'll say this user model get, and I'll say login equals login, and password equals password, okay? And I'll call this result. Let me print R of the result. Okay, and I need to make a real login and password. We'll talk about encryption eventually. So how about our login will just be admin for now. Make it easy. And on our page, let's try to log in. Okay, empty array. Now let's try admin. And there we go, we have a user. So that's what we want. And with this data, we're going to get the user ID. So it's always going to be in slot 0 here. So I'm going to say if result, if there's a result, we will set the user data, we'll set the user ID, and we're going to want to output data And we're actually going to want to output some JSON. Let me remove these guys. We can use CodeIgniter's built-in output, which in my opinion, this output isn't the best, and we might redo it later, but we'll say this output set content type. This would be application JSON. This is the header. It has to output a certain header in HTML. HTTP, so that it knows the type. I believe we can chain this too, and well, this output set output, and I'll say JSON encode, and I'll just pass in. Let's make an output variable. So output will be an array. Well, let me do it this way. See, I really don't like CodeIgniter's output class like this. So for the output, we'll just do it like this, and I'll say result is a success. Okay. I'll cut this guy, since we're always going to output JSON. I'll just throw him up here, and then for there, down here we'll do a 0, and below here let's just say return false. Okay. Basically what's happening is we're going to query this guy. Let me get rid of output. And if there is a result, it's going to return successful. Otherwise, it's going to return false. So sorry for the hiccup there. So for the user ID, we just want to pass in the user ID that logged in, and that would be result 0 user ID. Okay. Now I'll go ahead and I believe that's good. So log in. Look at this, and we get result 1. Beautiful. Let me change this to admin2. Try to log in. Good. So with that being set, this successfully sets our session. So in our home view, we'll say if o.result equals 1, else we'll just alert invalid login. Okay, that's the first thing we want to do. Or we'll alert a good login. Okay, so I'll refresh, and I'll say admin and some numbers, invalid login, and if we type admin, good login. Okay, so looking at this code, we're going to use this to redirect our page. So I'll say in JavaScript it's window.location.href equals, and then the place we're going to take them. So basically we've done an AJAX post to create a session, and which is queried a database, created a session, and then we're going to redirect them to the dashboard. And we're going to redirect them to the site URL of dashboard. So let's see if that actually works. Admin. There they are. They're in the dashboard, and they haven't been kicked back. That means the session's been set correctly. Okay, and I'm just going to once over this code with my eyeballs, make sure everything feels tidy. Okay, and we'll be covering a bit more. This isn't a final login, but it's a good start.